scripted, and this isn't scripted. I wanna equip you and use against my enemies, yeah. You see, I wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you.
Hello everyone, what is up? I am Rob.
Damn
son, it is Monster Fuzz.
Back again with a feature.
A feature that was sent in by one of our listeners. Whoever sent it in escapes me. We get a lot of things sent in and people are like, check this out, take a look. And it just so happened that me and you actually bumped into each other on Saturday. And I was like, oh, this was sent in to me last night. Just give it a look. And you went and gave it a look and you were like, oh, this is a good episode.
Yeah. Stuff there.
Mystery Man of Taured, or Taured, I suppose, is the idea. Basically, what I was told was, here's a lad shows up in Japan, has a passport from a country that doesn't exist. Is he a time traveler? Basically, that was the synopsis.
There's which is basically that's the episode, folks. See you again next week. It's funny. I managed to find like the sort of official story of it. There's the dramatic story, let's say, that has little bits missing, and then just tying it into the idea of parallel universes and how it might work, like not mathematically, but how physicists, if you look at string theory and brain theory and things like that, how would it actually
work if it was to work? How
could he appear and disappear? And that possibly only really works with one element of the story, which we will get into in this. It's an interesting one anyway, you know?
Yeah. So
even if it's like, even if the whole thing, like, even if you just go with kind of the official findings that aren't, you know, spooky or weird or sci-fi-esque at all, it's still a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, and this is it. We're lucky enough that our listeners do send us in interesting bits every now and then. And this was just, I think, sent in on Instagram, maybe Facebook or something like that.
That was great for me. I threw on a few out of vinyl and I just started reading in, typing up notes. I think I was listening to the Yakuza 0 soundtrack in keeping with the Japanese theme.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into this episode, we would like to remind everyone that if they want to check out the podcast over on Patreon, that is the best way to support us. You'll get stuff in return. You will get access to our Discord where you can have an old chat with us. You will get exclusive episodes once per month, and you will also get ad-free episodes too. We also have monetization on YouTube. You can support us there, or on Apple Podcasts. They have different tiers depending on where you are, but check them out. You'll see what's over there. You can pay for the year if you want. You'll get 2 months for free if you do so, and you don't have that annoying thing coming out every month. Check that out. We'll also give everyone a reminder to check out our social media. Give us a follow. Emo, if they've got any spooky stories, maybe they know a time traveller themselves.
Is it? Maybe you know a time traveller. Maybe you are a time traveller. Do write into us, monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com. We will, as always, read out any of your spooky stories on a mini fuzz. Sometimes we'll let them compile a little bit and do an anthology, if you like. But yeah, we will always put them out if you email us. Some things can get lost in the gram. Some of the other stuff sometimes, but the email is the best way to get a story to us. Yeah,
there's things that get lost in transmission, and as well sometimes like things get sent in that are just kind of you kind of have to do them in a certain way. Like we had a couple of short stories sent in and stuff, and you have to be in a certain flavour to do those. A certain mood rather than a flavour. But Emma, if you want to give us a bit of an intro into this episode, The Man of Taured, and let us know what's going on there.
The Man of Taured. So it's an interesting one. So basically, this is more, I suppose this intro is more the spooky, weird time traveler story side of it, if you like.
Right, okay.
Again, there's not a whole lot to go on other than
the urban legend itself, I suppose.
So basically, on a hot day in July in 1954, a man arrives at Haneda Airport in Tokyo. For all intents and purposes, he's perfectly unremarkable. He's a Caucasian bearded man and he's wearing a suit. He may have spoken French, and it seems as if he knew a good bit of Japanese as well. So nothing out of the ordinary. And that is until he hands over his passport. The passport looks seemingly legitimate, and you can actually see a little image I put in there, Rob, as well. Looks like a pretty standard passport type thing.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll try to stick that on Instagram if I remember.
So
big if.
Yeah, big if, but sure, look, high risk, high reward. So the passport looks fairly legitimate, but it has one oddity. It's issued from a country called Taured.
Oh.
As far as the immigration officers at Haneda Airport were aware, Taured was not a country that existed anywhere on Earth.
Taured is probably how you say it, yeah, that makes more sense.
Taured, yeah.
Taured sounds more
To be
alien,
fair,
right?
because it's a country that's never existed, you can probably say it any way you want, and
Potato.
you can plead the fool. And
Taured.
Yeah, Taured. So the Japanese obviously believed that this guy might have been a criminal. They put him at a nearby hotel for the night, and they conduct a more thorough investigation. 2 guards were stationed outside the man's room to make sure that he didn't escape. So in this version of the story, the idea is that the 2 guards are there, the hotel room is locked, no way in or out, blah, 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 blah. And of course, they enter the next day and the man has disappeared, possibly back to his own dimension.
Are you joking me?
Well, I might be, or someone might be vicariously through me. So the man's name was John Allen Kuchar Zegras, and that was the reported name that it was of the man that was detained in 1954. So this is actual. So he was detained, and there's documents saying that he was detained for document fabrication. Mm-hmm. He gets dubbed the mystery man by Japanese news, and later on, Japanese, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have these kind of like magazines that were UFO based, ghost based, blah, 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 urban legendy type of stuff. And they pick up on the story some years later, and that's where I believe it starts to get its kind of
legs.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the meat and bones of the story. Yeah. Now there is official, obviously they arrested the man, so that part did happen, and that's the official narrative, I guess, that we can get into now.
Yeah, so the case was investigated by Atsuyuki Sasa, and he was of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, who would later write about John Zegras in his memoirs. Although his passport contained the stamps of Japanese embassies in different East Asian countries, the passport was determined to be a counterfeit. Moreover, a visa was issued by the Japanese embassy in Taipei, now recognized as the Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association. According to the records, Zegras said he was born in the US, moved to the UK through Czechoslovakia and Germany, and attended high school there. During World War II, he was a pilot of the Royal Air Force, and he was once captured by the Germans.
This is kind of an interesting thing. So this is like 1954, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just in or around a decade after the war.
Yeah.
You would imagine that a ton of people at that time as well, there's no social media, tracking people is very difficult. I would be curious, and you would never know, but I would be curious to see how many people had like just said, this is a good time to just evaporate from what I am and where I am and start a new life completely born anew with someone else.
Quite a lot, but you'd imagine money would be a big limiter.
Definitely, yeah.
Like trying to get transatlantic or trying to get like on a flight probably was expensive. Like,
yeah,
like well,
yeah,
especially if you're in Ireland. But if you're on like the European continent, it wouldn't be too bad. You'd
on
imagine.
The European continent, I think it would have been okay. And I suppose ships, are a lot more
stowaways. Yeah,
stowaways,
jump on a ship.
Even train lines, riding them into different states and all that.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like it's something that's possible. Or if you do have money, you just want to disappear. I mean, the weird thing about this is even when he gives his official story, he's sort of all over the place, a captured prisoner and all sorts of stuff, you know?
Yeah. So he was a pilot in the RAF. He was living in Latin America after the war. Later, he became a spy for the Americans in South Korea, served as a pilot in Thailand and Vietnam. And after that, he was assigned by the UAE, well, it's not the UAE, it's the United Arab Republic. He arrived in Japan for a secret mission, which included recruiting Japanese military volunteers for the United Arab Republic. Eventually, after contacting the mentioned countries, it was ruled that the information was not based on any facts and that the seals in his pseudo-passport were proven to be fabricated. On the 10th of August 1960, Tokyo District Court reviewed the case and sentenced Zegras to 1 year in prison. after the announcement, he tried to commit suicide by cutting his veins with a piece of glass, which he brought to court with him. After his release, Zegras was deported from Japan to Hong Kong, where he was recorded to enter the region. His wife was deported to South Korea. Yeah, isn't it weird? Like, back then, yeah, just, I suppose, rocking up. Like, you would think, right, because he's been sent there as a spy or whatever. Like,
well, that's what he's
saying.
But it is possible if you were sent as a spy and you said, here, I've been sent here as a spy, and they rang your manager of the spies, you'd be like, sure, that's not true.
Yeah.
You're meant to be a spy, like.
It's also like, it's funny how back then, like, that they would just send like white dudes over to spy in Japan when there was like probably like 5 white dudes in Japan at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of US
stuck out like an outside.
To be fair, there was a lot of US troops in Japan, but in other countries where they send people to be spies, you'd be like, this is a bit weird. It's like that Ripley TV show on Netflix, you know, the Taured Mr. Ripley and all that's like, like he's he's like living in Italy. He's like, motherfucker's going to stick out like a sore thumb, surely. Like all the locals are going to be like, here's an American
fella.
We never see those type of people here. So what's he up to?
It's kind of a funny thing, yeah. I suppose again with the lack of social media that you can now, social media can be fabricated as well, obviously, but with the lack of that, it must be so difficult to figure out. Because if you're getting someone as a spy, the likelihood is they'd be like mercenary in how they would operate. I would be if I was a spy. Like if I was a spy going somewhere else, I'd be like, here lads, they're paying me this wage. But if you pay me this wage, I'll be like a double spy and I'll spy on them and I'll give them misinformation back and stuff.
Speaking of spies and false identities, have you ever come across Henry Davis on Instagram?
I don't believe so.
He's the best. He's probably my favorite Instagram account now. No one knows really who he is, right?
Henry
HENRYDAVIS. He photoshops himself with celebrities all the time, and that was the first thing. That's kind of where everyone's seen him first. He was just this average looking dude, photoshops himself with all celebrities and famous people.
DAVIS, followed by Monster.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Right. So he has a whole character. So like his son, quote unquote, is supposed to be that emo guy.
Anti-noun.
Yeah, he's anti-noun, and his son is that emo guy in the pictures who's not actually his son.
Hey father, let's go on a hike. Sure, son, why not?
And his son tries to kill him and all, and and he has this whole story built up, and his son also has a Instagram account that's like totally fake, and it's all about like, I'm gonna get you, dad, and he has like, want to know why I hate my son, and then it'll show a picture of like the sons that are driving the car to his house and all this shit.
Yes, I am alive. No, I did not assault my son with a remote explosive.
And he's constantly just posting this bad shit, and no one knows who he is, and no one knows like what the crack is with him. But like, if you go into his comments, like
he'll never defeat his son.
Yeah. If you go into his comments, like he'll have like thousands and thousands of likes on stuff. Or if you go to his son's Instagram page, it'll be the same. Like,
I was just assaulted by my son, Edward. This is wild.
It's absolutely insane. Like, but he's brilliant, Henry Davis. He's living.
One thing just says, I am not tweaking. Alright, so it must be like a piss take.
Yeah, it is.
That's a really good idea though, to make 2 of them and bounce them off each other.
Yeah. And like,
I did not assault my son with a crossbow.
And people love it, man. People love Henry Davis. Like he's like a whole experience. Like everyone's in on the comments. If you go to his son's Instagram, people are commenting, going like, "Leave Henry alone."
Anti-known.
Yeah, and he'll go like,
"Stop asking me if I am alive. I am Team King Kong."
He'll do like, "Do you think like, am I in the right or is my son in the right?" and stuff like that. And
stuff on this. She had a penis.
yeah, that's mad.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, check out Henry Davis for this. Yeah. He has a double agent life, which is what I'm saying. No one knows who he is. No one even knows if that's him in the pictures, like if that's actually him.
It's a pretty fun thing because it's such a simple thing to do as well.
Like people have found like the son is like this real obvious like MySpace emo era looking dude, and like people have found that obviously that's like different pictures and whatever.
It must be people around outrage if they're making fun of emo like that.
Yeah, but it's just so bizarre that people need to check out. We should do an episode on Henry Davis and get to the bottom of the experience. But there's lore of the Mystery Man that kind of goes into
the published lore.
Yeah.
So August 15th, 1960 issue of The Province, a Canadian newspaper. The story was reported with some alterations. In an article titled "Man with His Own Country," the newspaper claimed that John Allen Kushar Zegras was a naturalized Ethiopian and an intelligence agent for Colonel Nasser, and he carried a passport issued at Tamanrasset, the capital of Taured South in the Sahara. Taured is likely Tuareg misspelled.
All right. And
Tamanrasset is an actual province in Algeria.
One of them Algerian lads, is he?
Yeah, they get you. A text in Taured language written with Latin characters was also cited by the newspaper. Earlier on the 29th of July in 1960, the story in this form was mentioned in the British House of Commons when it was cited by Robert Matthew as an argument that passports are not very good security checks. So I suppose this was used as a way to... I don't know, what would be better than a passport as a security check? To be fair, security, I would imagine, was pretty lackadaisical back in the day, like in the 60s.
Yeah, pre 9/11.
Yeah, but you remember even when we got the first time we did Snowden, we got the ferry, I don't think either of us had passports.
Yeah.
You got hash across and all.
Yeah, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, did they? I think they did passport me.
But they were very, like, whatever about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
a lot of time you don't.
Even now.
Back then, yeah, that was, 2008 probably when we did that.
Yeah.
Well, boats, but they're fairly lackadaisical. I think they're getting better now, like, but planes, post 9/11.
Yeah.
I think I've flown like once pre 9/11, or maybe just around the time 9/11 happened was the first time I was on a plane. And it was fairly lax even then. Like, it's changed a lot. It's actually getting more lax again now.
Yeah.
But that's because it's like, we have all your fucking data on. We know what you look like. We know who you are. Like, we don't need to...
Yeah. I would imagine trying to not so much smuggle things through an airport, but being a person of interest trying to get through an airport is just impossible.
Well, you see, it's so much now where, like, you'll read in an article in the paper, like, say, where someone's apprehending a criminal or something, where, like, they tracked them over various CCTVs really easy and they got them. Like, it's like, it's pretty normal now, actually.
State.
Which, back when we were kids, just wasn't the thing.
Wasn't the case at all.
Like, I remember reading 1984 as a 15-year-old and thinking, like, this is, like, fiction. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, it's science fiction, but it might come true, but whatever. But, like, it is nowadays, literally...
it's pretty much there.
Well, it's 100% there. I would say in some senses it's more there than 1984.
Yeah. Because they didn't understand Orwell didn't understand what technology would be available.
Yeah. And there's just ways where they don't have to do, say, what they did with Winston Smith, where they had the camera in the sitting room and you have to go in and do your workouts. Like, they don't need
now
that.
They have the trackers on your phone.
Like, they have, you're kind of...
I think it was what we didn't realize, or what Orwell didn't realize, obviously, because he wrote that in 1948, wasn't it?
Way ahead of his time. It's crazy.
I think that and Brave New World joined together to create a kind of a template for us now. Well, that's what we are. Like, we're in the dystopia they wrote about. But it is funny, because, like, at the time he wrote that, the idea would have been that they would have had to monitor you in real time. There was no such thing as, like, server farms and saving the data. So if you step out of line, then, like, imagine one of us did something the government hated and they wanted to make a fool out of us. There's, like, 500 hours.
Joke's on you, government. We've made a fool out of ourselves.
From the first episode, we had made a fool of ourselves. That's very true. A podcast that doesn't want to be taken seriously. It's hard to use that against itself. But it is a funny thing. You're totally right. Like, the technology far surpasses what he would have kind of imagined in that novel.
We sort of exist in between the dots of, like, their surveillance, but they can fully surveil you if they want.
But it is funny, even that Ministry for Truth, and without getting into, like, all the ideas about, you know, and choosing a side of the ideological sort of debates or whatever, the culture wars. But the fact that, like, if you say that a woman isn't a man, the government can be like, you can't say that, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Not that I know the heart is probably in the right place with that in terms of integration and all that, or not integration, but fairness and equality and everything, and that's totally okay. But it is the fear, I think, that a lot of people have, is that if they do this here, at what point will they just do it to be self-interested? You're
not actually too far off like thought crime either, where like like in your head you're feeling guilty for having the thoughts that you're having because you feel like you can't vocalize them because the platforms that you can vocalize them on aren't into it,
and the platforms that you can vocalize it on are so far the other way
so
that
you
don't agree with the foundations that they're laid on
either,
you know?
And then you're like, fuck, I'm thought criming her.
But isn't it funny? You know what I mean? Isn't it funny that, and they talk about this a lot, because I feel like in the last few years, I feel like part of the reason again that Trump got into power is because people felt as if this stuff maybe was exacerbated, that they were seeing too much of it in the media, and you weren't allowed to have like a sort of middle road conversation that was reasonable. I think that's the problem with certainly populist politics, is when they become unreasonable and you're forced down that's when people are like, okay. So if we had had an autocratic government, that there was no democracy or vote, if you think about where that would have gone to from here, not saying it would have turned into 1984, because I think, you know, well, to be fair, there has been those fascist regimes before, but it is an interesting thing that people were looking at that novel and going, right, this seems to be happening, albeit not to the same extent as in the book. But we're being told language has to change. And even if the heart is in the right place, it's, what is it, like the path to hell is paved with good intentions. You run the risk of potentially setting up an expectation for the future where like actually now your speech is taken away, your rights are taken away because you were trying to do something to bring everyone together. Yeah,
it's a cynical thing, like where, you know, you look at like say Orwell when he was writing it, he wasn't very well, I don't think, and he was probably very cynical, and he was looking at a cynical view of sort of what he could imagine happening, and it turned out to be basically true, which is like fairly bleak, I suppose.
And I guess the other side, because we're saying, oh, it was so far, you know, he was looking into the future and seeing this, but then at the same time you could argue that actually happened in 1939 and previous to 19. So he was just sort of putting, you know, some futuristic dressing on a fascist government that had just been defeated.
Yeah, well, a lot of it did happen in Nazi Germany. So
it's a wild little thing where we're looking at it now. I think the funny thing about history is that generally when you look back at it, it all goes in cycles. Like even nowadays, a lot more people are becoming religious. I never thought religion would come back.
Same, yeah.
And now it seems to be like more people are going to church. It's just. It's not, again, I'm saying it without judgment, but it's just such a wild thing to see, you know?
Yeah, I think it's on our part a naivety, and not just me and you and I think there's a lot of people who think like we're moving past certain things, but it's like human nature, and it's like cyclical, and like, you know, it wouldn't be out of the realms of human nature to be throwing rocks at each other again in 200 years if something happens. Like
we're thousands of years away from being a more evolved egalitarian society.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
We're trying. I think that's the one good thing you could say, is that we are, it seems, trying.
Yeah.
But there's fear about, you know, coercion, control, all the rest of it. But anyways, it's about a man who has a fake passport. The case was once again mentioned in the books by Jacques Bergier. According to his version of the story, a person from Taured, a country in Eastern Africa, which stretched from Mauritania, to Sudan and included a large part of Algeria, was arrested in 1954 during a passport check. Now, according to this story, he was placed in a psychiatric hospital where it was revealed that he came to buy arms for the True Arab Legion. Right. I'm sure we've all done that. In 1981, the story was mentioned in a book, The Directory of Possibilities, by Colin Wilson and John Grant, with Tuareg misspelled again as Taured. Oh. And finally, the story that kind of popularized this is that it sort of originated in Japan, Japanese websites. So you're talking about 90s cultures when it's coming back into the fold. So they dedicated some of these entries into urban legend sites, occult stories, and they tell the story of a man that arrived from another dimension at Haneda Airport in 1954. He possessed a passport from the fictional country Taured, and when he was asked to point out his home nation on the map, he pointed to Andorra. Now, I think he actually pointed between Andorra and Andorra is kind of between France and Germany, is it? Or
France and Switzerland.
France and Switzerland, sorry, yeah. So he pointed to a place. The idea is that in his timeline, Andorra, or where Andorra is, or beside Andorra, was like where this fictitious or this parallel universe Taured place. Because if you look at this, they're constantly talking about like the Arab nations, the Middle East, stuff like that. But actually, it's in Europe, like slap bang in the middle of Europe, and it's a skiing location. That's Andorra, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that, again, he could have just been acting the maggot because he was a spy. But this idea is that in some sort of another fold of reality, Taured existed here. So Andorra, Taured, Switzerland, France, they're all like those spy.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, Andorra's a tax haven.
It is. Did you ever go to Andorra?
No.
I went there once when I was 18. The only skiing trip I've ever gone on. Really enjoyed it. I was 18 and a woman at the time who was like 28 tried to get off with me.
Tried to do the Macron on you?
Tried to do Macron. I was like, Mama, no, please, Mama. But yeah, I didn't fall.
Were you raging afterwards?
I was with someone at the time. I was a kid.
Well, sure, you were doing the right thing then.
Then afterwards, I think I broke up immediately because I was really sour about not like getting off with a 28-year-old, which at the time was like the stuff of legend. But mythological. And then I did like sort of go like, sorry about that. I just got all in my head, and you know when you're 18, it's like, I don't want to wait.
Yeah.
It's like,
how could I have feelings for another?
I just didn't realize how much you meant to me. And rain pouring down on, please, please. So yeah, and then I remember talking to my auntie about it. Yeah. She said to me, she said, some much older girl was trying to get off with you. And I was like, oh, yeah. Because I said it to my dad. My dad was like, oh, sure, look bad. And he was, your father was very disappointed that you didn't get up on her. I was like, so I did like the right thing. And then just like got shit from every angle. You break up and then you apologize and you have your tail between your leg and your dad's like, what my queer son didn't even, you know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous stuff.
I'd be intimidating. 18, 28-year-old, I mean.
It was definitely intimidating.
A little bit intimidating.
And I was totally out of my element. Like I wasn't even out of secondary school. It was the mocks were like happening a month from then. And I remember she was like, do you want to come out for a beer? And I was like, all right. And I went to a house and it was just loads of people who were like, not loads of people, probably 5 people who were like, I don't know, 30, late 20s. Yeah. 30. So I was like a little 18-year-old lad. Hilarious. Yeah. And then when I was leaving, I was like, I'm going to head off because I was super uncomfortable. And when I was leaving, like, she kind of just leaned in for the kiss. And I was like, oh, I have a girlfriend. No, I'll see you later. Buzzy. But again, in retrospect, I was like, now I'm 40.
C'est ne pas, mademoiselle.
No, je déteste la poussée. But like, now that I'm, 22 years older than I was then, I'm like, I totally should have done that. Looking back, I'm like, you did like the right thing, but you were a kid.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is anybody who's a teenager in a relationship.
Go for it. It's funny that the roles reversed. Imagine being 28-year-old
man
rocking up to your mates, but like, here's a 18-year-old that's on a school tour. Yeah. We have a few drinks, will we?
I was in like a Brazzers video.
Literally, like
Brazzers is free.
But she was probably extremely unhinged.
Oh yeah,
because the only time I've been in a very similar situation is with unhinged people.
Yeah.
But you know,
as an
enjoy
18-year-old, though, you don't realize that you're only gonna meet a handful of crazy bitches in your life. And, like, you don't realize till afterwards that you should probably like enjoy that when it's happening. Could have ended up with me getting stabbed in the heart.
It could have been.
Do you know what I mean?
In Andorra,
man. They would have hid me in the ice well, You would
have woke up in fucking Yugoslavia with your organs hanging out your arse.
Well, an 18-year-old full of testosterone organs, nice organs. But that was my story anyway. Now I did buy Facelift and Super Unknown on that holiday, so it wasn't a wasted trip.
I bought Super Unknown when I was about 13 or 14, and the week I got it, I got sick, and I was in the bed like hallucinating, and that album kept coming on, and I just can't listen to Super Unknown.
It just has a really bad
really, because it's kind of a dark album anyway.
Yeah.
But I associate it with like fucking typhoid fever or whatever the fuck.
It has kind of typhoid vibes to it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is so like, 4th of July and the day I tried to live, fell on black days, and like, Jesus Christ. And then the man, obviously at the time you wouldn't have known, but the man who wrote all the songs wound up topping. Kickstand though, Fresh Tendrils, those two were so nice and quick and straight in and straight out, and there's no sadness.
That's all you want.
No sadness.
So you're asking us, you're chomping at the bit here to know what exactly is a parallel universe, because obviously he disappeared into one apparently, or he came from one. So what theories support it? Well, a parallel universe, also known as an alternate parallel or multiple universe. These are hypothetical. They're a self-contained reality existing alongside ours, the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
The idea suggests that there could be other universes that are similar to, or maybe a bit different from our own. There's alternate versions of time and space. Parallel universes are often discussed in the context of the multiverse.
The thing that kind of put the final nail in Marvel's coffin.
AKA,
or maybe got it to a cool place, and then everyone was like, this multiverse is shit because nothing matters anymore. Like, it doesn't matter who dies in a movie anymore.
No.
Sure, Robert Downey Jr. is back as Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
What? Why, like?
That's the thing, is like, you kind of undo yourself by doing that.
It's like if Earth just came back.
Yeah, which
then
is
it doesn't
quite possible.
matter as much. Well, this time,
I'm
gonna do things my way.
It's quite possible. So, the idea is, they're a theoretical concept, these multiverses. And many of them might exist within a larger reality. We've talked about quantum on the podcast before, but
the quantum.
It describes particles existing in multiple states simultaneously, which is a superposition, until they're observed. You've got a bit of the cat in the box phenomenon. Yeah,
I know that that's only meant to be used as an allegory to describe superposition. Mm-hmm. But when you use it as I'm always like, but sure, the cat is alive or it's dead though. Like, the cat knows whether it's alive or it's dead. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, the cat's either there or it's dead. And I wonder about this, and I know I'm getting this wrong, and I'm using.
What is the name of it again? It's not the cat in the box.
Schrodinger's
cat. There we go.
So it's
the cat in the hat.
The cat in the hat. It's like
the idea is that
it's like Shakespeare's monkeys when they say infinity is so vast.
Yeah.
That monkeys would eventually type out the complete works of Shakespeare, which has recently been called into question, obviously, because they're kind of saying, doesn't matter how much time you have.
Yeah.
That'll never happen. But again, I think the point is to illustrate how vast and the space of time that infinity is. So Schrodinger's cat, I think you're kind of going like, it's almost like everything behind me doesn't exist
until I observe it
behind me. But this camera is looking at the two of us now.
Yeah.
So, and maths is some load of numbers and that though. This is mad, I have some load of numbers. There's
too many numbers going on here.
Just put them next to each other. There's only 10 numbers, including 0. But you can make some amount of numbers.
Then you've got little symbols now, like pi and all. Sure, that's not a symbol. The pi is a symbol.
3.14. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
I don't know, man. All this multiverse jazz, the Schrodinger cat in the box is, I get it, but I also don't. It's like, basically, you put a cat in a shoebox, when it's in there, you don't know if it's alive or dead, because you're not observing it, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, but even the observer effect sometimes is as far as I'm aware, is misrepresented as someone needs to observe it, as in to look at it.
For it to be definitive.
But that's not, I've heard different things where people say that's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
So it's like superposition. Superposition is basically the particle being in two places at once, which is an element of quantum physics. And I don't fully understand it. Like, I read a book on Schrodinger. It's called In Search of Schrodinger's Cat. I still can't describe it to you properly. Like, no, it's very.
It's just a lot of these lads.
But it's the double slit experiment with the wavelengths and all the rest of it, and shooting the particles. and they would find that like they existed in all the places until it reached the destination. One way I've heard it described is that when the quantum is there, the quantum is like a cloud, and basically it's possibility. So the quantum is possibility. And this is where lads like Deepak Chopra and other sort of guru guys talk about meditating something and manifesting it into reality by focusing your mental energy, which is a low density psychic energy, which can then transform a thought into an actual
dreamcast.
Into a dreamcast. So if you really want a dreamcast, something like that would work. So it's that idea of the secret. Then someone else says, no, the cloud is just possibilities, and until it fixes on a final point, that's what the quantum, it's everywhere, and then it's just, now it's here. But it can disappear and reappear, and you can have quantum entanglement, which means you split it, you put one on Timbuktu and you put one on the moon, and they both turn at the same time. So it's, I don't know, it lends itself, as you can imagine, to a lot of spooky metaphysical woo-woo thought.
What they need to do is interview that yokel Cletus UFC fighter who keeps
talking about God.
Oh, he's brilliant. What's his name again? I love him. I absolutely love him. I can't
remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. He's talking about the devil and all when he's going into fight. Like
every time I see him, I'm like, why does he have a microphone? He's some dude.
Why is he allowed? I love him. Talks about homeschooling.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. And the flat earth and all. I love.
Oh yeah.
He's my,
because it's in the Bible. We did that, like the four corners of the earth. So he's in the Bible.
Yeah. No, I love him. He's deadly. Yeah, I think he lost his last fight, and he does be crying and all when he's he's like unhinged. He's absolutely class. I love him. Like I actually get legitimate joy out of watching his videos. When I see someone that's like so Cletus, but so like 100% like
he's on Cletus,
but he's like, oh no, I'm right. Like, and it's just that like blind dumbness to where it's like, and he's not trying to be ironic. He's not trying to be funny. He's like, no, I'm right, and you motherfuckers need to listen to my shit. And everyone in the room's too afraid of him because he's gonna kick
off. It is mad though to have that much faith in the Bible.
It's not even the Bible, it's everything. He's like, the earth is flat and like that's the crack, and you're like, everyone's afraid of him.
I thought he was coming because he's always talking about Almighty God and he'll protect me from the devil. So like I think was when we did the flat earth episode, I just thought it was a wild conspiracy theory. But as it turns out, it's that part now where the angels are at the four corners of the earth. Yeah. So for that to be true, the earth has to be like fucking flatbread.
Yeah. You know? This is like a naan bread. Man, I'm telling you, he's the dude. We need to get his name.
I'd say he would come on the podcast. I bet he would. I'd say if we asked him to say, tell us about how the Bigfoot are the Nephilim, I bet he'd come on the podcast. Well, I tell you, the fallen angels made it with the children of man, and that's Bigfoot. Like, that's great, man. Thanks.
Can you find
in your next fight?
Can you find his name for me, please, sir?
Yeah, but what I put in fucking
just type in
yokel UFC. Let's see what happens when I type in yokel.
Cletus UFC.
No, because there could be a lad called Cletus. Yokel UFC. What is it? Redneck UFC might get it for me as well.
Yeah.
Yokel just comes up with Yoel Romero. Autocorrect.
No fucking Jesus.
This one fucking Jesus. Yusuf Zalal. Right. Okay. What was your own? Redneck UFC?
Yeah.
Now we might get a bit of.
You find them there. I'll just.
You keep reading about.
I'll go on to quantum and then you find
theoretical physics. You tell the boys about theoretical. I'll find their next guest on the podcast.
Yeah. So quantum mechanics describes particles existing in multiple times.
UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell.
That's him. Yeah, Bryce.
That's him, isn't it?
Bryce. Yeah, some dude. I fucking love him.
Bryce Mitchell.
Everyone should just watch clips of Bryce Mitchell all the time. He's so good. We need to get him on the podcast. I actually do love him. It's just so
that's hilarious. Redneck UFC fighter Roy Nelson comes in a close second. He was a fairly serious fighter. Roy Nelson was
a good lad. So yeah, multiple states simultaneously. These quantum mechanics, they're the particles that exist in multiple places. I'm just thinking of him and laughing here to myself. Many worlds interpretation proposed by physicist Hugh Everett in 1957 suggests that each possible outcome of a quantum event creates new branching universes. The multiverse, Loki, Disney Plus. Every decision or random event could create a parallel universe, leading to an infinite number of universes where all possible outcomes happen at the same time. Cosmic inflation and bubble universes. The theory of cosmic inflation, proposed by physicist Alan Guth, suggests that the universe underwent rapid expansion shortly after the Big Bang. But who did the Big Bang? It was God, I'm telling you.
Bryce Mitchell, come and save us.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible.
It's
I'm
in the
Bryce
Bible.
Mitchell, and I'm running for local representative. He'd say he'd win too.
He would
wherever he's
please. Probably a town of like 25 people.
Yeah, sure. Who would you'd want the UFC fighter to be your leader? To be fair,
It's great though, because when he goes on about stuff, you can tell like that he's about to flip a table and box lads if they challenge him. So like everyone in the room with him's always like, yeah, man,
that's
class.
right, Bryce. That's right. I'd love to have him on the podcast, like sitting here with us, and the two of us be like, "That's right, Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce.
That's right.
You're dead right.
That's right. That's class." Are you taking the piss out of me? What? Bryce.
Oh, man.
I do love, but he seems like a nice lad. Like he kind of seems like a fun character. Just don't say anything against Jesus.
No. But that's fair enough, like.
Well, if that's what you're into, like, you know, you can't be mean to people.
Yeah, so the theory of cosmic inflation proposed by physicist Alan Guth, he says, there's rapid expansion, Big Bang. Some extensions of this theory, such as those by Andrea Lind, suggest that different regions of space could stop inflating at different times, leading to bubble universes. Each bubble universe could have different physical laws or constants, created entirely separate and potentially unobservable universes with distinct characteristics.
So is it like there's different bangs that are happening around us that create these alternate universes?
different sizes and all.
All the things the boy said is bullshit. It was our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
It was Jesus.
It was. I haven't brought Jesus into this, but Jesus could make a man from Taured if he wanted to.
God could
do all this shit.
But God actually could have done a Big Bang though, legit. Well, legit, like, I'm not even trying to be like silly when I say that. Like, legitimately, for me, I'm not one of those people that subscribes or prescribes, whatever you want to say, to that's necessarily just science.
But sure, it's only
It's what started the science.
Yeah,
You
but
can't
even
tell
Big
me
Bang
that
is
God didn't start the science.
Yeah.
Boy.
All right, Bryce. Calm down, Bryce. Bryce, calm. Bryce, no, Bryce, no. What you say about Jesus in episode 328? Bryce, please. Yeah, it is. Like, even the Big Bang Theory is a theory. Like, it's all a theory. The fact that we exist is so gosh darn
God,
unbelievable that it can only be our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
God clicked his fingers and that's what it is.
It
That's
took
what
him
it was.
7 days though. I mean, like, God's, I don't know if he was part of a union or something, but he didn't seem to work too hard to get he was like, first day, he's like, I'll do that today.
You know,
The first day, God was like, let there be light, and he's like, phew, good enough.
yeah, but sure, you had to set it up like.
I suppose, like, there's
So
no...
making a house on the Sims.
How do you make?
Quickly.
How do you do it in 7 days before he makes the sun? Should noticing is a day.
Should take you weeks to make a nice house on the Sims.
It would, yeah, but when you're God, 7
Yeah, but, do you know what
7
I mean?
days.
Or just fast, like.
I wonder if God has like limitations. Do you know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
limitless.
probably.
I don't know, like
I don't know.
because he made the universe, which is pretty.
But there's probably
limitless.
things beyond the universe, beyond our ideas, and like we can't imagine what's going on outside the universe.
God all
knows.
exists within God, but we're part of God. Then.
But there could be beyond God, is what I'm saying. I mean, God might be just one.
Each be
deity.
one God like Vishnu, but then
Yeah.
you also have the other one like Ganesh and the rest
They
of
have
the
their
lads.
own universes. Mad shit going on.
What if we're all just in a movie? Like we're NPCs.
Sometimes I think like when you get like a weird synchronicity or you get something like a weird coincidence, I'm like,
Especially when you're doing this garbage every
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Like, have you noticed that you've become slightly more unhinged over the last 4 years?
oh yeah, of course.
Like, yeah. Like, I'm definitely like, when I see, like you said, a synchronicity, you notice them way more often.
yeah,
And because we're all, usually you just be like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But now because we talk about synchronicities for a half an hour every week,
you're like, what would Bryce think?
yeah, like, well, I don't believe in synchronicity because the only way you see a synchronicity is if our Lord Savior would let you know that you have seen it. So I see a synchronicity when people start talking about trans, and I say I don't like that synchronicity. But I'd say he hates all of that shit.
Yeah, it's all that. We need to get him on to get his opinion on transgender people. I think
What we should
Bryce
do is, do you ever see?
and aliens, the two of those things together.
What, speaking of
Transgender
Bryce,
and
is
aliens.
there a girl called Bryce White? She's a
don't know.
transgender man, so man turned into woman. Very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
I would be easily fooled.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is we want to set her and Bryce Mitchell up.
Oh, but no, that would be
Like a
violent
like
consequence.
like Bryce White.
It's like that show or something about Miriam that time, remember? And
That's right, yeah.
That was tragic.
That didn't end well for anyone.
Didn't end well for anyone involved.
Miriam, yeah.
Poor Miriam wasn't well. The lads weren't well. No one
was well. That was exploitation. That was like
Classic.
early 2000s classic exploitation.
Yeah, that was reality TV gone wild.
Yeah.
You know, basically for listeners who don't know what There's Something About Miriam was, it was a reality TV show, I believe it was British, where...
Yeah, it was on Sky, right?
Yeah, where they had this really attractive transgender male to female.
Just no one knew she was
She looked really
transgender.
well.
She was hot,
she
super
was
hot.
Yeah, and so they had basically a reality dating show where all of these men didn't know that she was transgender.
And they were all lads that'd be drinking down the pub of a Sunday.
And
Like,
they were trying to compete for her affection to
I
win
think I
her
really
at
love
the end of the
Miriam.
show. And yeah, basically, I think like a couple of lads could have deleted themselves after the show. I think
Miriam
she
did.
deleted herself.
Yeah.
It was just a whole absolutely terrible sort of conundrum that emerged.
And I guess that's the thing is like, we don't want that. So you need trans rights. You need like for it to be a socially acceptable thing.
But ask Bryce how to sort it all out.
I feel like Bryce may not be the authority that you think he is on social issues.
I think he should be.
I think he would be. I mean, speaking of Nazi Germany, no, I wouldn't.
You
I
leave
wouldn't
Bryce
say
alone
Bryce is
now,
like
sorry.
a Nazi. No, I wouldn't say that about Bryce.
Well,
I don't know
excuse me.
Bryce. I've quite enjoyed.
Is he on the podcast?
He's 5'9".
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
he'll be
could
on the
stare him
podcast.
down. 145 pounds. Actually,
Yeah,
we might.
sure the two of us might sort of.
We might have.
Two of them together, like jump on.
personal life.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Go on now. Are you going to?
He's a conspiracy theorist voicing
No,
his
he's not.
belief
He's
that
speaking the truth.
COVID was created in a lab by the US government.
Oh, well, that's
not the
that could be
Chinese.
true.
It was deliberately released. The US government stages mass
Joe
shootings to
Biden.
advance a gun confiscation
It was Joe
agenda.
Biden.
He's criticized the Federal Reserve as a corrupt institution that is manipulating the value of the US
Yeah,
dollar.
yeah, he's right.
He's also a flat earther, a geocentrist. That's like the rich man's way of saying flat earther. A geocentrist who believes that gravity is a hoax.
He's right. Gravity is
He
all.
indicated that he would homeschool his son because he did not want him to be a communist, to worship Satan, or to be gay. Jesus Christ. In July 2024, Mitchell claimed that Elon Musk is a false prophet and potential
he's right.
antichrist,
Oh, I'm on
and that
board with
his
him.
company Tesla is a scam. Right?
Yeah.
He's choosing weird paths
Yeah,
here
I'm
because
with
now
him.
he's
But
not with the rest of the boys.
He's thinking his own shit. I'm with him. He's speaking his truth.
Wow. In 2021, Mitchell released his 7-track country rap mixtape
Well, I need to listen to that.
titled Pasture Fire.
I watched
He
his.
wants to homeschool his son so he doesn't turn out to be gay. Like I don't think that's how it works.
I mean, he's strong, man. You know, can't judge him.
Bryce,
no,
what books have you
he
read?
was talking
Books?
about-
I wouldn't trust no books.
He was talking about flat Earth. Is basically he's got that sorted out. So all he's got is sorted. So you have a hot air balloon, right? And you anchor it to the ground, fixed point, and then you send it up in the air. And it's actually, no, you don't even need to anchor it. Sorry, you're going to put it up in the air and just have it hover, and it's not going to move. If the earth was spinning, it wouldn't move.
Yeah, does Bryce know? That's because he doesn't believe in gravity and atmosphere, I suppose. Yeah.
it wouldn't move. Doesn't move. You see, if you got a helicopter, the same.
If you went up high
the
enough
hell-
and you noticed like curvature,
No, that's
not possible. That's
not-
just camera trickery.
Yeah. No, if you went up in a helicopter on the same spot and sent it up, it won't move. Stays in the same spot, no matter. I'm sure. How's it going to stay in the same spot if they're
So
spinning?
it's similar like if you're in a car and the car is going 40 miles an hour,
Yeah.
you are also going 40 miles an hour. You don't like skill. When you press the ignition, you don't fly out the back of your car while the car drives away.
But that's.
But I mean, that's quantum. That's the quantum.
I love to have him and
Just saying.
Neil
to him.
digress Tyson.
Neil would get really upset. Like
I'd love to have a
Neil
conversation
might like
with him.
walrus and
I
just
sit
lie
there
on him. Weight classes exist for a reason, Bryce.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Neil was a wrestler, so yeah, you're gonna take
Right.
it away.
Anyway, we've got some more theories. String theory. Michio Kaku posits that the fundamental particles of the universe are tiny vibrating strings. This is interesting because remember what Anna said about the ghost that had a string tied to Alana.
Yes.
So is this some sort of... So I've seen this recently about these invisible strings that tie us all to each other in a kind of a ghoulish sort of folklore. Flat Earth, Bryce Mitchell. It also implies that there would be many different ways to compactify extra dimensions to fold them into forms that exist in higher dimensions, leading to many different potential vacua or stable energy states. Each of these vacua might correspond to a different universe with its own set of physical laws, which together form a vast landscape of possible universes. So that's another way. The mathematical universal hypothesis is proposed by physicist Max Tegmark. This is kind of a poor man's theory, in my opinion, just having read one paragraph.
Well, you're very intelligent. So you're entitled to have a very intelligent
I am the quantum.
Yeah.
So it suggests that all mathematically possible structures exist physically. So if you can do an equation about it, it exists physically. He argues that if a universe can be described mathematically, it must also exist as a physical reality, which I suppose is all theories, I guess, to an extent.
It makes sense. It checks out.
I guess so.
I'm on one.
Like when Matt Damon was cleaning the floor that time, and then he wrote on the board, and they were like, that exists as a physical reality somewhere now. That was like the equation he was trying to complete.
Yeah, the number equation exists somewhere in some form.
Like if I write a theory that if I have 2 apples and then you give me 2 apples, now I have 4 apples. That exists as a reality because there are apples. But if someone else gives them to me, maybe it's not a perfect theory. I don't know.
No, isn't it basically what he's saying is like, so...
He's saying if you can prove it with a formula, it has to exist physically in some way, which I suppose is... Because so much of that is theoretical.
Yeah.
But even like if you think about the speed of light and E equals mc squared, like that's a formula that proves that. And
yeah, like is there a formula to how like tectonic plates move?
There must be some sort of a formula with a degree or a margin for error. So we can, it's almost like the weather.
Is there a formula when a helicopter goes up real high and stays in the same spot?
It's called engineering, I think.
It don't move.
I'd love to be in the car with Bryce, and as soon as you press the elevator, it just flies out through the back of the car. Every time, just flies out through the back of the car. There's another theory, brain theory, which is a version of string theory and M theory. So our universe is thought of as a 3-dimensional brain floating within a higher dimensional space. Brain cosmology proposes that other brains could exist parallel to ours, each with its own version of reality. These other brains could be separate universes with their own laws of physics. Collisions between brains might even explain phenomenon like your Big Bang Theory, or a kind of a Venn diagram. So like he could have looped into this and then been looped out as a brain kind of crossed over. The holographic principle is... It suggests that our 3D universe might be a projection of information encoded on a 2D surface, much like a hologram. This was proposed by the physicist Gerard Hooft and Leonard Susskind.
What a name.
The holographic principle implies that everything we perceive could be a part of a larger multi-dimensional structure. So I guess this is a little bit like Plato's cave, in a sense.
Plato's hologram.
His which?
Plato's hologram.
Plato's hologram, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was actually called Plato's allegory, and I thought you said that, but my ears weren't working. I was like, hologram, allegory? If our universe is a hologram, there could be other holographic projections potentially forming separate parallel realities with their own physics. So, Rob, what I tried to do is try to ask ChatGPT how, using these theories, how would our friend have sort of appeared in our dimension and then been sucked back out of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's basically the same answer 5 times.
Right. So, according to many worlds interpretation, every possible outcome of every event splits into different universes. In this context, it's conceivable that there exists a universe where Taured, not Andorra, developed as a nation. The man from Taured may have crossed over into our universe by accident, ending up in Tokyo in a state of disorientation, assuming everything would be as it is in his world. Oh. In the bubble universe theory, different universes may exist as separate bubbles. Each have their own unique physical laws or histories. It's possible that in another bubble universe, history unfolded in such a way that Taured exists instead of Andorra. And yeah, a fluctuation or brief interaction between bubble universes could have momentarily allowed the man from Taured to enter our universe. I wonder what that looks like. In the landscape multiverse of string theory, different regions of a larger multiverse might each have unique configurations of laws and histories. One configuration could result in a world where Taured developed as a distinct nation, and basically, again, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing every time.
Dimensional rift or a wormhole is what makes these two connect. That's basically the different thing.
Yeah.
And then in brain theory, universes exist as separate membranes or brains within a higher dimensional space. If his reality existed on a parallel brain to ours, he might have slipped between brains due to a rare overlap or leak in dimensional boundaries, entering our universe temporarily. In his universe, Taured could be real and recognized as a relation as any nation. So basically,
it's just the same thing over. It's basically you're using the same foundation to say he managed to slip into our universe for a moment.
I suppose what's interesting is how one would slip over, and I think that's where the science fiction lies, right?
Yeah, and I think because
you're trying to figure out
because of these theories, like these theories are all seem like very similar theories. It's interesting that like we're brought to a place where basically you're effectively trying to use maths to prove metaphysical Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're looking at other dimensions, other planes of existence, other universes that spiraled along with us. But that's kind of what they're doing there, and they would believe with certainty, I would imagine, that this is true, these mathematicians.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're fully, like, I'm not sure. Again, I'm completely ignorant to like physics and all that, but are they certain, or is it just because it's scientific it has to be proven, right? And because they can't definitively prove it and it's only equations, then without definitive, like, this is the answer, here we are, I don't think they can hang their hat on it. I think they would always challenge each other on that.
Yeah, they could opt to believe in it, if you like. Yeah. But yeah, we can't really.
They have to actually, ironically, they have to have faith.
Isn't that funny?
To believe in their theories. They have to have faith in their theory.
You almost have to have faith to believe in anything.
Yeah.
In a way, like, even to trust in others is effectively an element of faith to it. Ernest Hemingway had a lovely line where he said, "The best way you can learn and decide if you can trust someone is to trust them."
Ernest Hemingway.
Ernest Hemingway blew his own head off.
Very, very intelligent, wise words, Evan.
He was a big drinker, liked to get into fights, and he liked to write things and travel around the place.
Renaissance man.
Something like that.
Bit of fighting, bit of writing.
Good bit of writing, I think.
Writing.
He's a mean. Bit of writing as well, though. Yeah. I think he was a mean-spirited drunk as well.
Sure, aren't we all? At times.
I might be a very friendly kind of.
Are you?
Be a huggy kind of.
I can go either way.
Would you go either way? He'd be like, "You're dope, Bryce Mitchell. Where's Bryce Mitchell?"
I just want to hear people like Bryce. No, I think, look, that whole idea, that whole concept, it's interesting how someone could drift. Now, again, we have no evidence of anyone ever doing that. Metaphysical Bigfoot would be one of the prime candidates for someone who can zip through a wormhole and appear in the woods.
Like, the thing is,
that's what people think.
Even if you believe in the Big Bang, which I would imagine the majority of people do, that had to happen somewhere. So we're in a different. There has to be another dimension if that happened. I think the problem for us is that we have no way of figuring out how many dimensions there are. Like we were saying, sometimes I wonder if you believe in something, can that exist in some way? It's the very action of you believing it.
Your brain would melt.
Yeah, it's like
thinking about the Big Bang, your brain would melt.
Like. Yeah, I think the reason that we can't spend that much time on this, because even the lads who come up with those theories, they still go home and have a normal life afterwards. They still live,
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't be able to, but I do think that like we have filters on to stop us going too far into this stuff as a way to be kind of like, listen, you're just here to procreate and eat. and leave.
But are we even? Like, do you know? And
Well, I mean,
when you're talking about
you'd
something
imagine
as,
we are, but
when you talk about something as grand as the Big Bang, whatever we do seems almost insignificant completely.
yes. And you're like, you do kind of go, well, what's the point in? Because
unless we are one and done, and
well,
we're the only
see,
race.
there must have been an initial design and a framework that everything works on, right? Because there doesn't seem to be any point for anything to evolve. Like that must have been hard coded into life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
There's like, yeah, there's something making things happen. Like there's a secret sauce.
There's some sort of like, it's like a video game. It has an engine
happening.
and this is how the engine works. But now it seems like we've got to a place where now we're aware of that and we're like, what the fuck are we even doing?
Yeah.
And no one can figure it out. Bryce probably happier than most of us because he has a framework.
Well, he actually knows.
He actually knows, yeah. If you don't homeschool your children, they'll all be gay.
I actually can't wait to watch Bryce clips now after this. I'm actually excited.
I do think his attitude towards just like homeschooling is it just seems like he hasn't thought as much about that one. Maybe do you know, like he's gonna. What if one of his kids turns out to be gay after being homeschooled? Sure, he'll have no one to blame but himself. Then you know what I mean. Now what? Well,
and
the other thing is like I think at this day and age, people caring about whether someone's gay or not is pretty weird.
This is Bryce Mitchell, man.
This is Bryce Mitchell, man.
He exists in his own universe. He exists in his own multiverse.
That is true. He is probably an interloper.
Yeah, he could be.
He's come from a different dimension where old values are still upheld in 2024, maybe.
So the man from Taured, sighting or shiting?
I would say shiting.
Yeah, big shiting.
Yeah, I would say shiting. I would say he's a fella who is just
bad passport.
He was probably just hoping no one would look at his passport and we'd get through.
He it's one of these ones that comes up in like mystery Facebook pages, mystery Instagram pages,
and without looking into it, you would be like, "Oh wow, this is." And
sounds
then you
great.
Look into it, you're like, "Oh right,
yeah, sounds great." But hope you enjoyed this episode, folks. You know, it was a little bit of a bit of everything, really. Actually, I enjoyed it, and thought it was very good.
Yeah,
yeah.
I find doing the notes. Taking a few things from a few different sources and then ChatGPT and sort of ChatGPT can be a little bit impersonal at times. It's just like I love at the end of everything he asks us, it's important to approach things and ideas like this with a rational mind. And
it's rare today now that I do notes, but I don't use it really because I found it's a bit cack nowadays.
What I find is if you ask it certain things and approach it in certain ways, you can make it give stuff to you. But you have to be careful because oftentimes
it's wrong.
Yeah. So like I have no idea about those theories, but I'd imagine that it probably hasn't done the best.
Yeah. Checks out. I've been Rob.
Eamon.
Monster Fuzz over and out.